Anyway, welcome everybody. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. Let's see, what are all the other holidays? Happy New Year. All the
Happy
other
birthday, Sandy.
Festivus.
Thank you.
Festivus for the rest of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, today's my birthday, so yep, I'm celebrating my birthday. So with you guys, this is my Zoom party.
Woo!
Want you to know.
Happy birthday.
Anyway, Chuck, I'm sure that you have something
Yeah, I could.
pretend hysterical to share with us this
Yeah,
morning.
I'd like to interrupt this regularly scheduled broadcast to bring in some nonsense here. Adults don't learn unless we're disoriented. Guess what? We're disoriented. So the learning curve is really high right now. And then the last two are just about homeschooling. The real emergency is going to be in 20 years when all these kids are adults running the world with homeschooling educations brought to you by day drinking. Homeschooling supplies. We have your supplies right here. That's really sad. I think that was a real sign, by the way, which is even sadder. It's like, really? And then we have to finish with the puppies because you just can't not finish with the puppies.
Monthly dose.
I think I tagged you in the recent dog video with the dog carrying the sled up the hill and then riding it down. I don't know if any of you've seen.
Oh no, that'd be awesome. I mean,
he carries his own sled right up at the top of the hill and then rides the sled back down on the snow-covered hill.
How can you not love the puppy?
So Tom, what are we doing today?
Well, we're going to breach a big challenging issue.
We're going to breach it?
We're going to breach it.
Or broach it?
Yeah, one of those two.
Breach and broach
it. We're going to talk about the power of gratitude. And it's a word bantered around a lot, but I think at least I didn't understand the depth of it until years ago. I really started pressing into it as the value and the outcomes for the person being grateful, as well as when sometimes people receive acts of gratitude or words of gratitude. And I think if we all stop for a minute and think about how gratitude has impacted us, either as a recipient or the giver, that we all have stories, and we're gonna talk about some of those. We're gonna have a chance to actually put some gratitude things into practice here in a few minutes, which will really be fun. It's so we can I'm watching you type.
Oh, wait, don't watch me type in the chat.
I'm grateful for you today.
It's Tom, focus.
My wife, it's her birthday.
I was trying to answer,
and I wanted to throw a party for her, and guess what? You're it.
I'm having a big party in the summer, though. I've decided I'm postponing.
We're having our unbirthday in June or July. Yeah. Anyway, it's gonna be a good time today, and it works best if you interact and you participate. And we're going to give you a chance to do that. Let's talk about the science first. All right.
Yeah, I was going to say, tell us what's behind gratefulness and gratitude.
So interestingly enough, this is a hard year, and I think almost everybody raised their hand and go, yeah, in some way it's been hard. And then for some of us, if you've had that conversation, you could also identify what people have talked about as the gift of COVID. We do business and personal development in groups with people and one-on-one. And some people have come out and said, wow, I was a local business. And I thought I was shut down. And all of a sudden I realized, because of online traffic and Zoom and all the other tools, I could take my business international. And some people have done really well with that. And, other people have just taken a death shot and had to shut down their business. But if they step back just a little bit, could find out that there's another opportunity for many of us. There's some really sad stories out there too, but you can get those on the news any day. We want to talk about the other side of things.
So I have a really good story about that. So in 2019, we had a really tough year. Like, we were just a year ahead of everyone else in terms of having a really tough year. We had a practice year before 2020. Our practice year was 2019. And it was just really tough in terms of business. And then we got, so this will sound kind of like a shameless plug for Craigslist Group in 3 to 5, but it really isn't a plug. It's just a true story. I mean, it is a plug, but it's just a true story that we got involved in the fall, back involved after, 10 years ago being in 3 to 5, and then continues to stay in the community. And then we got involved in a more committed way as facilitators of 3 to 5 clubs and hanging out with Chuck and other people more often. And so I am happy to report at the end of 2020, as hard as it was, like we had a phenomenal year. Like financially, we had a phenomenal year. Like, and we had to dig out like of some debt and stuff like that. We're almost there. But I look back and I go, wow, like what happened in spite of everything changing so much and being so hard and so uncertain that we ended up, really having quite an amazing year, which feels way better than Christmas 2019 did. And I think that all along we have had to stay in that thankful, what can we be thankful? I remember one time laying in bed early in the morning saying, I'm thankful I'm in a warm house. I'm thankful that there's food in my refrigerator. I'm thankful I have people who love me. I'm thankful that no matter what happens, Thomas promised that if we have to live in a homeless shelter, it will be in a shelter that allows
It'll be a really
dogs
nice one.
and horses. So, to get to the point where what is the most important was the people, right? What were the beings, the animal and human beings in my life. And now looking back, you never could have told me last year at 2019 anything about 2020, let alone that would be the case. And so I know there's people on the Zoom, you might be like in the place we were in 2019. And I just want to give you hope today. Like, I just want to give you hope that you don't know what the future entails, but I'm telling you, it can be really good. And I'm believing for you. And I'm thankful that I can say that this year.
Amen. Amen. Yeah. What I found in the last year and a half, Sandy has had a life full of dogs. I didn't.
You're one of them, right?
Yeah. Well, we won't go
I've
into
had some of
what that
those
applies
too.
to, but when I grew up, we had a yard dog, and so it was a family dog, and it was more an alarm system because we lived in a semi-rural area. When somebody would drive in the driveway, the dog would bark, and but I never had a relationship with it. And then I went for many years no dog, and then we had an opportunity to get a dog, and her name is Nala, and it's a German Shepherd Husky mix, and she's just an incredible dog. And if I ever feel like I'm disconnected from the world, all I got to do is get around Nala. All she wants to do is tell me how much she loves me, and she has really changed my life in many ways. She just makes me laugh out loud. And I thought, what kind of dog can make you laugh? I guess it's most dogs. I don't know about your dog, but my dog just brings joy to my life.
We delivered some little horseshoe ornaments that we crafted to the neighbors yesterday with the grandkids. And we came back around the neighborhood, and all of a sudden in the middle of the road is Nala. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she jumped the fence to come and find us. So we just took her the rest of the way with us. So
she just wants to be with us. So
she understands thankfulness and relationship like nobody else.
So if you want some hardcore evidence,
instead of the soft touchy,
that's right, all these sloppy stories, which you probably have as well. I did a little reading from the Heart Association and Mayo Clinic and about a dozen other sources, and they all say the same thing, and that's this: when we choose to be grateful, even for 3 to 5 minutes a day. So let's just go on the low end. Everybody's got 3 minutes you can squeeze in, no matter how busy you are, and take a look around. And like Sandy said, wow, my house is warm. The sun's out today, depending on where you're at. There's always things to be grateful for in your life, right? And if you choose to focus on it, amazing things happen, according to Mayo Clinic. Dopamine and oxytocin are released into your brain. And those are always good things. Then oxytocin then releases nitric acid, which expands your blood vessels. So consequently, you get some physical reactions. Number one, your blood pressure comes down, more oxygen, nutrients get to your body, which combats inflammation, and your heart is in a better place. Consequently, your immune system is strengthened. So 4 things happen at least. And you talk about the 3 biggest killers, generally in the world, and it's heart attacks, strokes, and what's the other one? Oh, cancer. And gratitude actually releases things into your life that combats all of those. And of course, we all want a strong immune system right now because of the plague and the pandemic and all the things that are going around. So just by doing that, I'm not talking about changing the way you eat, though that would probably be good, or getting regular exercise. That also would aid you. But
Or
just
sunshine.
3 minutes a day. This is the miracle drug of choosing to be grateful for just 3 minutes.
And we talked before in our little pre-meeting together about the difference between being grateful, gratitude, and expressing gratitude. Chuck, you want to chime in on that a little bit? Because there's a little bit of a difference.
Yeah, well, grateful is a it's an action. I am grateful right now for what you're doing, and gratitude is a state of being, is what it calls it. It's a position you take in life. And I think the big aha for me in both of those is that gratitude actually has to come before gratefulness. The state of being, the decision to have gratitude, to be grateful, the decision to be grateful has come before being grateful. If you don't have that state of gratitude where I'm entering into this moment thankful or appreciative, then you can't be grateful. So it is a decision that we make. It's not a DNA thing. You know, we think about people who seem to be more genetically disposed to being bubbly, and others who are quieter. And okay, that's not this. This is a thing that we all choose, regardless of our personality, it'll be expressed differently. And so I'd love to share just very quickly. I'm not going to read this, but I'll use it to refer back to. I want to share a story that would make us all grateful. One of the ways to get into a state of gratitude is to look around you and ask yourself, is there anybody else nearby who might be struggling or might be just slightly worse off than me, or a whole bunch worse off than me? So let me give you a life story. I've threatened to buy the rights to this book, and I'm going to do it because you can get it on the internet now, but it's been out of print for like 25 years and it costs like $50 to get one. And it's just such a tackily written or published book. You can even see, look here in the corner, it's about cut off on the edge. I mean, this was not well done. But it's one of my best books ever, Self-Made in America by John McCormick. It's the only motivational book I recommend because it wasn't written by a motivational expert who makes the world sound like it's all lollipops and unicorns. This guy built hair salons in Texas and malls in the 70s. And I'll just share a little bit. He was building one in a place called the Greenspoint Mall. And there was a Vietnamese fellow who would stop by each day to sell them donuts. Found out that he worked in a bakery in about 100 yards down in the mall. And his story was that he had to come from, remember, this is in the late 70s. He had come from Vietnam. His family was one of the wealthiest families in North Vietnam. They owned almost 1/3 of North Vietnam before it went communist. And obviously that was a problem. When it went communist, his father was brutally murdered, and some of the family fled to the South, absolutely penniless. While he was in the South, he got let's see, what was he doing down there? He just prospered. He started to get into construction and other things, and became a millionaire again. And he went back to the North because he's from the North. He'd lived there all his life on a business trip. The North Vietnamese decided to capture him and throw him in prison. And they were going to leave him there the rest of his life. He escaped by killing 5 soldiers and made his way to the South, where he was once again arrested because they thought he was a plant from the North. And he was thrown in prison. He finally got out and started a fishing company, and it became one of the larger companies over a number of years in South Vietnam. Then the South was being taken over by the North. He had to make another decision. He got on a boat with what little gold he had, and he and his wife boarded a boat and floated out to the American ships, and he traded all of his gold to get safe passage to the Philippines, and he went to the Philippines penniless. He was in the Philippines for a number of years. I was able to get a fishing boat and start over, and he was back in business and became one of the larger fishing fleets in the Philippines, and lost it all. And they don't say how he lost it here. And so he was going to America with his wife, which was really his ultimate dream. And he was distraught and depressed. Gee, what a surprise. About having to start over once again with nothing. His wife told of how he found himself near the railing of the ship about to jump overboard. And she said, Lee, if you jump overboard, his name is Lee Van Vu. Lee, if you do jump, whatever will become of me. We've been together for so long and through so much. We can do this together. It was all the encouragement he needed. He got off the railing, went back, landed in Houston, which is where this mall was. And he had a cousin there who owned a bakery. And his cousin decided to hire them. Hire his wife and him for $300 a week total. They lived in the back of the bakery and slept on flour sacks for 2 years while they saved $30,000 on $300 a month, $300 a week, sorry, $300 a week. They saved more than half of that. In 2 years, they saved $30,000. They bought the bakery, and then they lived in the back of the bakery for 1 more year to pay off the $30,000. Lee Van Vu is a millionaire again today. Anything you've been through match that? Yeah, I'm grateful for the life I have after hearing that one. And we all know of people like that who have been through more. So I just wanted to share that to get us, this is the mindset part. Let's look around at the world around us and see if there's others who are in a tougher place than I am. I spent a lot of time in the Congo, which after 2009 became the poorest country on earth, bar none. And I spent a lot of time there, a lot of things to be grateful for, having spent time in the Congo. And I can tell you this, the people I met in the Congo, almost without fail, were much happier than the people that I live beside and live around in Highlands Ranch, Colorado. If you lined up 100 people from the Congo who had nothing and 100 people from the Highlands Ranch, you're going to find a much more satisfied, contented, happy group amongst these people who are living without anything. It's a mindset.
Why do you think that is? I mean, how do they get to that mindset, Chuck, where they could have a sense of happiness and well-being with nothing?
Yeah, because they didn't look at the material things in life. They looked at family, they looked at relationships, they looked at what they could be getting. I call it the 1,000-to-1 principle. I learned this years ago for myself, not for others. And then I help other people with these things. But to me, the 1,000-to-1 principle is simply, there's probably 1,000 ways that whatever you're trying to do won't work. Lee Van Vu could have found 1,000 ways for every single one of his problems to say, here's 1,000 ways this will not work. And he would have found at least 900 to 950, and I could have filled in the other 50. You could have. And off we go. And he's done. Or you can start with, well, what could work? How could I get out of this one? And he might have found 1,000 ways that it wouldn't work and 3 that might work. The question is, how many does he need? How many do you need? How many do I need? We only need to find one way to make this moment work. And we can decide to focus on all the ways it won't, or we can decide to focus on the ways it will. Carol Dweck wrote a book called Mindset. And in her book, she said there's 2 mindsets, the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. And for decades, I've been saying all of our lives are defined by 2 sentences. One is a statement and one is a question. The statement is, I can't do that. Well, Henry Ford, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Henry Ford. Or the question, instead of I can't do that. How do I do that? And off Lee Van Vu went. How do I do this? Let me find the one way it will. So I think the people in the Congo, anyone who's happy with less than what I have, is busy focusing on what they do have and how to make that work for them. Doesn't mean we ignore the pain. We don't do that at all. but there's a balance in that. And the balance is we spend more of our time in joy and then figure out how to get more of it. And Lee Van Vu did the same thing. He didn't stop with, well, I should be happy being poor. No, he went on and became successful many times over. Grateful.
You know, our youngest daughter went to school at NYU in New York, which was a big dream fulfilled, and a big undertaking by the whole family. And I remember she was a freshman. So here she is in New York City. She's at an incredible school, Tisch School of the Arts. You know, she's pursuing her dream, and she calls one day and she was really depressed and homesick and all that stuff and far away. And we had Skype at the time. And so we would Skype here and there. But this one day I remember her calling me, and I was really concerned about her well-being. And I said, I am going to put some money in your account, and I want you to go to the local coffee shop or Starbucks or whatever. And I want you to just get around other people. Like, you don't even have to talk to them, but just get in an environment where you're not all alone. Get your favorite, you know, coffee or drink or treat or whatever, and just put your favorite music on and just be in an environment where you've got other beings around. And it was, you know, right after Thanksgiving. And later that day, she emailed me or texted me or something and said, hey, Mom, I went and here was my experience and I feel better. And she said, the red cups were out today. And she goes, Mom, I'm just reminded that sometimes everything's better with a red cup. And what she was saying is, and so I drink out of a red Christmas cup almost every day of the year to start my day, because, and so maybe there's something that reminds you.
Yeah, symbolism.
Shift your mindset. Maybe there's just a little touch point or something. And the other lesson in that, you know, for me is that we cannot afford to be alone, especially right now. Like, we have to have friends and community and others that we get to say, I'm struggling, or I don't know, or, you know, can I just be with you today? Right? Can I have a red cup experience with you today? Because we're going to get through all this and we're going to be better. And like you said, Chuck, the people in the Congo had each other, and there is a joy in our human spirits being with one another, and our bodies and our souls being with one another. And I think that's, if there's nothing else we've gotten out of 2020, is how valuable that piece is.
No kidding. What do I have versus what don't I have? I'd love for us to kind of jump in here, and then we can do this in small groups as well. But I think be thinking about a way in which you experienced gratitude and gratefulness in your life. And I'll just share one story from my own life to get us started. When I was 21, I joined the Army because, well, probably at 20, I dropped out of college because I got my scholarship taken away from me because the dean of the music school, because I challenged the dean of the music school for giving me an A for a course that I had not taken. He gave me an F, showed up he changed my report card, gave me an F, and took my scholarship away from me because I got an F in a course that I had never signed up for and never taken. But they had to get me in this course. They had to fake get me into this course every quarter, but they didn't have room. So I dropped out of college because I lost my scholarship, and I joined the Army because I was pretty sure nobody would ever hire me. That was my self-image at the time. I in the Army on my bunk, probably the first week I was there, I was writing a letter to my mother, and I wanted to be grateful to my mother. It hadn't been a great childhood. If you've ever watched the movie Home Alone, that happened to me twice a year. I mean, you know, you're just the forgotten thing. I mean, literally, my parents told me the reason they had me, I was the fourth child. The reason they had me is because they had three, and if they lost one, they'd only have two. So let's have a fourth. I mean, you know, you're just this addendum, you know, you're just this. So I would leave the house at 8 a.m, come back at 6 p.m. because I was hungry. And, you know, it was just that was my life. Somebody asked me recently, who was the adult that you looked at who mentored you as a child? It's the second most stunning question I've ever been asked, because I realized I never even thought about it. And there's nobody. But it's not even a question I ever thought. It's not like I said, gee, I wish I had somebody. It never dawned on me that I ought to have an adult I looked up to. So at 21, I'm sitting on my bed and I'm trying in the Army, and I'm trying to get grateful, and I'm writing my mom this letter, and the subject of the letter is going to be, Mom, I forgive you for being such a lousy parent. It's okay. You had a rough childhood too. I understand. I want you to know that I'm growing up, and I understand that you had your struggles too, and it was difficult. And I got done writing the letter and I read it. And the letter basically said, Mom, please forgive me for being such a lousy son. I know I was not easy to raise, and I made your life miserable, and I'm so sorry. And I didn't write that letter. That's not the letter I would have written, but that letter began to change my life. So, and you can tell this is pretty important to me. So we all have incidences like that. We all things like that in our lives. Maybe not that dramatic. Maybe it's just some little grateful thing that happened because your neighbor did something recently to encourage you, or brought something over, or something like that. I'd love for us just here at the end of the year to share a little gratefulness. Anybody got a couple of those, or Tom, Sandy, what do you think? Should we go into our groups, or what do you want to do at this point?
Anybody got one of those stories you want to venture out and share before we get in the groups?
Yeah, I can.
I thought you did, Matt.
Yeah.
All over your face. Go ahead.
Yeah. So actually just this last week, and I'm going to do another plug for 3 to 5 clubs here, but so I brought a challenge to my 3 to 5 club, and they all rallied around me, and they're continuing to support me through figuring things out and making it happen. So
that's cool.
I got all misty-eyed there during my bottleneck, and again a couple times after that.
And so, Matt, tell everybody what you do, because there might be some people on this call that need you and what you do. So
sure. So I'm in the internet marketing space, and what I'm looking for right now is contract web development work, because that's what I've been doing for the last 10 plus years. Excuse me. So WordPress handyman type stuff is anything like that.
Awesome. And so Matt in fact, everybody put your contact information in the chat so you can connect beyond this.
That'd be awesome.
And create some relationship with one another. Matt, thanks for being courageous.
Yeah, it's really cool to see his 3 to 5 club community come together to help him. There's like 8 people got on a call all at once that evening, and he's got 5 people that he's sharing, 6 people that he's sharing with every day. Here's what I'm doing. Just that support and accountability is really cool.
By the way, if you've never experienced 3 to 5, you're welcome to join any one of our clubs as a guest. Come and check it out, because we can talk anecdotally all day long, but until you've actually experienced the community and the connection, as well as the great training, it's hard to make the connection with what your own experience. Anybody else have a story about gratitude either that you've received or that you've been able to express?
Well, I'm going to use this one related to another member of this particular community this morning, lovely colleague named John Hayes over there in Ireland, and who introduced me to an opening and an opportunity for our group and enterprise earlier this year. And in the midst of and in the face of pandemic in 2020, we're moving ahead with some pretty remarkable paths and steps for coming into our Ireland with our residence communities. So extreme gratitude for Mr. Hayes and his participation in 3 to 5 as it turns out, and then our relationship going forward.
And is this turning into the largest redevelopment project in the Waterford area or the south of Ireland, or it's the largest of something?
It's the largest redevelopment regeneration project in Ireland.
Wow.
Yeah, and has been supported by the national government, as John knows, and others. So it's a pretty remarkable story. And so in terms of gratitude, yeah, buckets full of gratitude.
Awesome for the
That's
for the both
awesome.
of you. Thank you for that. Simple introduction, huh? Kind of
Yes, sir.
course correction.
Yes,
How
sir.
cool is
Pivot.
Did
Pivot with a
you,
capital P.
didn't you guys meet on the,
Tom, just think if, because you've been probably one of the longest standing 3 to 5 club members, just think if like year 4 or 5, you're like, yeah, I got this, don't need this anymore. Like you might have never met John Hayes.
I wouldn't have. So definitely those connections and community as it stands. So you bet.
coincidentally, didn't you meet him on this Rising Phoenix call?
Yeah. Out of my Q&A with you on June 1.
Love it.
Excellent. Excellent.
Well,
All right,
actually,
so-
no, let me back up. John, I met him in February when the Irish crew came over
Came over.
and was visiting. So it was that. And then the follow on, though, it took place in June. So here we are.
Excellent.
Megan, I think, has a gratitude story, and then we can jump in groups.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of gratitude for everyone and everything in my life, but something I've lived with over more than a year now is battling infertility and loss and trying to see the good in that. And I never thought I'd be grateful for it, but now that I'm 12 weeks pregnant, I'm very glad that I did go through those battles because I did find a special community to relate to and people that I didn't, lost contact with in high school and things like that. And just going, because it's not talked about much, going through those struggles. So I get emotional because it was hard. It was a really tough battle, but I'm very thankful for where we're at now, and it made my husband and I stronger.
And you're going to have a baby boy
Excellent.
when?
A baby boy in June.
In June.
Woohoo!
So Megan is the
Yay.
Megan at craigsetgroup.com. She's the behind the scenes wind beneath all our wings on so many things. And so often she doesn't say a lot, but she is definitely an inspiration for all of us. So we're very excited for you, Megan, and for your
Thank
new
you.
family.
So let's try a little experiment. So this will take your participation. If you grab two things, a piece of paper and a writing implement. I don't care what color it is, pencil, pen, magic marker, crayon, whatever you got close by. And think about this. If you focus on one person who's been an influence in your life, hopefully you had more than Chuck had by the time he was 21. But it doesn't matter. I don't care whether it was a person you knew close up or it was a person at distance. They were a sports figure, or a state spokesman, or the mayor of your little town. It really doesn't matter. No qualifications. Somebody who influenced you. If you jot their name down, and then I want you to think about 3 or more attractive attributes of that person, not the physical attributes, but how they showed up in life, the things they carried, about themselves that influenced you for good. There's a lot of people who can influence us, either way, but we're talking about influencing for good. One person and a couple of attributes that made them attractive to you or influenced how you thought or act. Just jot those down real quick. Just take 30 seconds more. Nod your head or raise your hand when you've got it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I see that head, see that hand. Thank you, see that. Thank you. Okay, we're pretty much there. All right, so Megan's going to put us in breakout rooms, and what I want to challenge you to do is identify that person, read your list, and if you want to share anecdotally how that impacted your life, because we get a chance to express this. Once we express our gratitude, it facilitates that physical change in us. Okay, ready? See you there in a second. Hang out. Don't leave. We'll come back and talk.
Yeah, if you don't want to go into a breakout room, just hang out. We'll be right back.
Yep, looks like we're back and we're front too. So welcome back, everybody. Anybody learn something significant from somebody else in the sharing
Yeah, they had a worse childhood than I did.
that make you feel better?
I'm grateful for mine. And I'll bet they know somebody who had a worse childhood than they did, and they're grateful for theirs.
Oh, perspective, huh?
Perspective.
Anybody else? You gain an insight from somebody else's story? Yeah.
Well, I've heard a couple of you mention there that you had a tough, difficult childhood, which was quite interesting because I read a book. I'm reading a book which I just had it there for ages. That's it there. Joe Gerard. He's an Italian or from Sicily, but his father used to beat the hell out of him on an ongoing basis. It's absolutely terrible story of his childhood, and yet he ended up the greatest salesman in the world, attributed by the Guinness Book of Records. So I think there's a lot to be learned from having it possibly not as easy. I think you strive harder. I certainly strived very hard in my life. I didn't have an easy time. And a lot of things, a lot of obstacles, but I just keep driving on and I get stronger each time. So I think it's a lot to be said for having gone through an ordeal. So that's my contribution, if it helps.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Anybody else? So we did not originate this little experiment. I actually saw it, and a lot of people have been exposed to this in one form or another, but there's a organization called, I think it's called Soul Pancake. I don't know why I didn't think of that name. It's an awesome name.
That's the little kid that does the cool rap stuff.
They
right?
do all
He's
kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
well, this is a redheaded science. These guys got a medical outfit on and stuff, and he's a total geek. But they decided to put this to test, and they pulled 4 or 5 strangers into separate areas and asked them to identify, just what we asked you to, and asked them to jot down attributes about that person. And then they got back together afterwards and said, let's just take this a step further. We're going to have you call that person. And people kind of laughed nervously and went, oh, really? And so they dialed the phone and
not emailed, not texted.
Yeah, they called them, and it was a whole mixture because there was a gentleman who was advanced in his age, and he identified his accounting professor that gave him a new direction in life. So God bless you, all of you who are accountants. I didn't think that was possible, but they found out that gentleman had passed away, so he couldn't talk to him. But the other people called his mom, called her older sister, called her best friend in Great Britain, and actually she woke her up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and just said, "Look, we're doing an experiment. Will you hang in there with me for a minute? I want to read this to you." And of course, you can imagine the impact it had on the recipients. Anybody here received too many accolades, too much encouragement here in the last couple of days, last month,
or ever?
Yeah, I think I'm on overload.
Last year, no hands. So how powerful it is to receive that. So you can do that. I want to challenge you. We want to challenge you to take the experiment one step further. Call the person who you identified. And just say, look, I'm just doing an experiment. Would you listen to this? Because if it feels too awkward to do the introduction, and read it to them. And it will, number one, you read it out loud, which already started that chemical reaction in you. But if you give it to the person, you move from gratitude to grateful, or from grateful to gratitude. It will release those things in your body that you need most today. Dopamine, oxytocin, nitric acid, and all the physical impact that makes. So anybody into taking this a step further and calling somebody? Good for you, good for you, good for you. Good. Hey, good for you. All right. We got a lot of courageous people here. Imagine the impact you're going to have on that person. Now, whenever I do this, I'm always a little jealous because I wish somebody would do this for me. But I get actually a commensurate response in my body and my mind from giving gratitude to somebody else. Any ahas? By the way, the latter part of the video, and you can go find it on YouTube, is that they came back around and asked a different set of questions of the people who were in the experiment and found out that their happiness went up somewhere between 9 and 40% by expressing gratitude to somebody
Wow,
else.
that's remarkable. I love that we have such great science today to show us how these things that we intuitively know are helpful. Actually, we can put numbers on it. It's awesome. Sandy, I love your symbolism thing. I think it'd be good for all of us. It'd be a good takeaway for all of us to think is there something we can have every morning or every week that we look at or we do or that helps us get into that mindset. Tim, you got one?
Yes, I do.
I love it.
On my nightstand at home, I have my gratitude journal. And every day I write down 3 gratitudes. So the reason I do it first thing in the morning is because that gets me going with the right mindset. So try writing down 3 things you're grateful for. It can be people, it can be things, it can be anything. Every day is a really good habit to get into. Really
That's
set
awesome.
your day up well.
Perfect.
Well, what
Nice.
about if, go ahead, Bart.
Connie.
Well, I've been working on the habit of before I leave the bed in the morning, before I put my feet on the ground, to come up with something I'm grateful for. And that really does open the gateway to a day of joy.
Bart, I would suggest writing it down has an even greater impact.
Here's the book.
There you go. You got a journal. Awesome.
Connie, were you going to jump in?
Yeah, I just wanted to share this book that I've been slowly reading. It's because it's very in depth. It's Becoming Supernatural, which is not about becoming a spirit or whatever, or ghost. It says How Common People Are Doing the Uncommon by Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's a chiropractor that was involved in the movie called What the Bleep Do We Know? So it's along the same lines as what you're talking about, all the physiological reasons why it's good to do things like meditate or whatever. And gratitude is a higher vibrational frequency emotion or state of being. And the more you get, even temporarily step out of your body for a few minutes to meditate or whatever, then you get all kinds of ideas and information that your brain, when you're in the lower stages, which are anger, control, fear, guilt, then that's when your brain is saying, no, that you can't do that. That won't happen. But the cool thing about the quantum level is it's very unpredictable. And we're most of the time, we're spending our time in predictable, like, if I do this, this is going to happen, or I can't imagine how that my life could turn out the way I want it to be. I just can't figure out a way. So when you get into gratitude and higher states like love, appreciation, bliss, wholeness, then you start getting those ideas. They come to you, or they show up in your brain, and that's when you can start seeing ways to expand your life and bring about what you actually want. So it's very practical. And this book is quite difficult to read, but I finally got motivated to keep continuing to finish it, because it's like, oh, it finally makes sense. It's not all just a bunch of hoodoo voodoo stuff. It's like, it's very physiological.
I love it.
And,
Connie, would you mind popping the name of that book and the
Yeah.
author in the chat box for us?
yeah, I will.
Great.
I just want to make a quick observation on what we're hearing from each of us, from the people who are writing things down and taking action like this. I'm reminded of the phrase we've used often in the past. The Greeks taught us that we think our way to a new way of acting. There's nothing in life that supports that. We act our way to a new way of thinking and feeling. And so writing down your gratitude makes you grateful. Doing things, deciding to, I've been mad at my wife, and I went and bought her a card and roses, and by the end of buying those things, I was writing her a card and telling her how much I loved her. It's the act of actually being, having gratitude through action that gets us to be grateful.
Excellent.
I've got a gratitude story I'd like to share.
Please go ahead, Chris.
Well, amongst the many wonderful things that Chuck Blakeman has done for myself and the small business owner that I've known through Chuck is that he brought this guy, Jim Wilder, to talk to us about a book they wrote called Rare Leadership. And Rare Leadership is based on brain science, and RARE stands for remain relational, always be your best self, return to joy, and endure hardship well. And one of the facets of Rare Leadership is that joy makes your mind work better and makes your white matter in your brain grow. And you can actually measure the amount of joy that someone has experienced in their life by doing a CAT scan on their brain or a scan on their brain and measuring the amount of white matter. But the really significant thing that to my way of thinking, was that if you're in a state of appreciation for about 3 to 5 minutes, at least 3 times a day, you can reset your normal. Your normal is the way that you see the world, and it's usually formed in the first 7 years of your life. So if you did have, for example, a really rough childhood, you've probably got a pretty rough normal, the way the world looks to you. And you can actually change that by being in a state of appreciation from 3 to 5 minutes a day, 3 times a day, for about 90 days. And so I really took that to heart and really worked on it. And I was making a gratitude list every day. I was writing down 7 things I was grateful for. And but I always made sure it was never the same 7 things. And it was amazing to me how I could come up with at least 7 things every day that were absolutely brand new just by thinking of the day before. And I would realize these totally amazing things that happened to me. And then in one sales training course, one of the tasks I was given was to write down 50 things a day that I was grateful for, which was really inundating. But I found out it wasn't that hard to do. And so I started doing that. And most recently, what I've done is when I wake up in the morning, I'm grateful for my first 20 breaths. I just pay attention to my breathing, and I'm grateful for my first 20 breaths. And then I get up and I make it a point to be grateful for the first 48 things that I experience, and that really kind of gets me off onto a good start. And I'm finding that my normal, which used to be pretty rough, actually is improving. So I'm very grateful to Chuck for introducing me to James Wilder. And I've got to say that my attitude's changing because of this stuff.
It's awesome.
Thanks so much for that. I appreciate it. Yeah. I'm not being facetious. So it looks like your head's larger. So I think your white matter is definitely growing.
So we appreciate everybody, and we're winding down to our time here. So how about if we have maybe 1 to 3 BFOs just as we end here?
Blinding flash of the obvious.
What are you taking away from today? You can put it in the chat or you can speak it.
Circumstances don't make me who I am. How I respond to them does.
Thank you.
Mine is what we get, what we intend, not what we hope for. So we're going to intend to be more grateful.
I like the story about the Congo being the poorest country, but so many happy people there. And all the other stories of severe hardship and just bludgeoning through them and getting to where you want.
Kim says, I'm grateful I found my way here. Kim, we're grateful that you did.
One last one to send us out.
Tim, you got something?
You get what you get, so don't throw a fit.
You get what you get.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks. Have a great rest of your week.
Yeah, find community, stay in it. No,
Live in gratitude and be grateful.